The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched 100 meters high, its crystal walls refracting light in patterns that made Dr. Emily Parker's eyes water. She stood among Earth's delegation, her formal military uniform feeling too tight around her neck as the Arxian assessment team towered over them. The insectoid species' chitinous armor gleamed under the artificial stars that dotted the chamber's ceiling, their compound eyes reflecting the human delegation in thousands of identical, disappointed images. Specimen classification. Grade C. The lead assessor's translator echoed through the chamber. Physical parameters well below acceptable standards for full council membership. Their mandibles clicked in what Emily had learned was their species' version of condescending laughter. Admiral James Henderson, the head of Earth's delegation, stepped forward. His weathered face remained composed, but Emily could see his fingers curling into fists at his sides. With all due respect, the Council's charter clearly states that technological achievement and cultural development are equal factors in. Your technological achievements are noted. The Arxian interrupted, multifaceted eyes shifting colors in apparent amusement. However, they merely serve to compensate for your species' inherent deficiencies. The translator struggled with the last word, but the contempt needed no translation. Emily found herself studying the Arxians' movements as they circled the human delegation. Despite their impressive size and natural armor, their motions followed strict, predictable patterns. Each step was precisely the same length, each turn exactly 45 degrees. Even their guards moved in perfect, mechanical synchronization. The lead assessor reached down with one of their 4 upper limbs, casual strength evident, as they lifted a steel sphere from a nearby pedestal. This simple training weight, used by our juveniles, masses 50 of your Earth kilograms. Without warning, they tossed it toward the human delegation. Several diplomats scrambled back, but Emily stepped forward. She didn't try to catch the sphere. That would have been foolish. Instead, she calculated its trajectory and deflected it with a quick sidestep and a well-timed push. The sphere rolled harmlessly past, though the effort made her arm ache. Interesting, the Arxian's translator crackled. You chose deflection over force. Typical of your kind, always seeking ways around your natural limitations rather than overcoming them. But Emily wasn't listening to the insult. She was watching the sphere roll across the polished floor, noting how the Arxian guards tracked its movement. Their heads turned in unison, at exactly the same rate, with exactly the same delay. A pattern. Everything about them was a pattern. The Council's decision is final, the lead assessor announced. Earth's application for full membership is denied. You may reapply in 50 standard cycles, assuming your species has evolved beyond its current state. As the rest of the delegation slumped in defeat, Emily's mind was already racing. She'd seen something in that chamber that no one else had, not a display of Arxian superiority, but a weakness. Their strength, their armor, their precise movements, they were all products of rigid evolution, of adaptation to specific challenges. But humans were different. She pulled out her tablet the moment they reached the transport vehicle, her fingers flying over the screen as she accessed the classified files of Project Phoenix. The neural interface program had been shelved 6 months ago, after test subjects proved unable to handle the sensory input. But what if that hadn't been a failure? What if they'd been looking at it all wrong? Dr. Parker. Admiral Henderson's voice interrupted her thoughts. I know that look. What are you thinking? Emily looked up, a slight smile playing at her lips. Sir, I'm thinking that the Arxians just made a crucial mistake. They judged us by their standards, by what nature alone can achieve. She turned her tablet around, showing him the schematics for the neural-linked adaptive power armor. But they forgot something important about humans. We've never let nature tell us what we can't do. The magnetic lock on Laboratory 7 clicked open at exactly midnight. Dr. Emily Parker held her breath as she pressed her palm against the scanner, half expecting alarms to blare. Instead, only the soft hum of awakening systems greeted her as she stepped into the darkness. "Thanks for the override, Kay," she whispered into her comm. "Don't thank me yet," replied Kayla West, her voice crackling through the secure channel. At 19, the former hacktivist was the youngest person ever hired by the Global Defense Initiative, and currently the most wanted. "You've got maybe 20 minutes before the security system resets." Emily's footsteps echoed through the abandoned lab as she made her way to the central platform. Project Phoenix had been her life's work, right until the military shut it down 6 months ago. The neural-linked adaptive power armor prototype stood where they'd left it, a silent sentinel in the darkness. Its matte black surface seemed to absorb what little light reached it. "Emily." A deep voice from the shadows made her jump. Dr. Marcus Wright stepped into view, his dark skin almost invisible in the low light. The former head of neuroscience at MIT had lost everything when the project was terminated. "I was beginning to think you'd change your mind." After today's humiliation at the council, Emily shook her head as she began powering up the systems. "This isn't just about Project Phoenix anymore, Marcus. It's about survival. The Arctians won't stop at denying us membership." The lab hummed to life around them. Holographic displays flickered into existence, showing the complex neural interface patterns they'd spent years developing. Marcus moved to a console, his fingers dancing across the controls. The original interface was too complex. The human brain couldn't process that much data without breaking, Emily finished. But what if that was never the problem? "Look at this." She pulled up footage from the council chamber, showing the Arxian guards' synchronized movements. "They're perfect, too perfect. Every motion calculated, every response predictable. And that's relevant because..." Marcus leaned in, studying the footage. "Because we've been trying to make the neural interface more precise, more controlled. But human strength isn't in perfection. It's in adaptation, in chaos." Emily's eyes lit up as she accessed the core programming. "We don't need to make the interface simpler. We need to make it more fluid, more responsive to individual thought patterns." A warning light flashed on Kayla's channel. "Guys, we've got company. Arxian signature detected. Some kind of drone. High-end tech." Emily's hands flew over the controls, initiating the emergency transfer protocols they'd prepared. "How long?" 2 minutes, maybe less. They must have been watching the lab since the council meeting. Kayla's voice was tense. "This isn't random surveillance." Marcus had already started downloading the core data to their secured servers. "Emily, if they find us here..." "They won't," she cut him off, moving to the power armor. "But we need to know if the new interface theory works. Now." Marcus grabbed her arm. "The neural load could kill you. We haven't run any tests." "We don't have time for tests." Emily pulled away, stepping onto the platform as the armor systems began their startup sequence. "Kayla, initiate Emergency Protocol 7. If this works, we'll need somewhere to go." "Already done. There's an old bunker complex off the grid. I've got transportation standing by." Kayla paused. "Drone's almost here. Whatever you're doing, do it fast." The power armor opened like a blooming flower, its internal systems pulsing with blue light. Emily took a deep breath as she stepped back into it, feeling the neural interfaces connect along her spine. The previous test subjects had all suffered seizures at this point, their minds unable to handle the data flow. But this time was different. Instead of fighting the flood of information, Emily let it flow through her, around her, like a river finding its natural course. The armor responded, not with the rigid precision they'd originally designed, but with an almost organic fluidity. Through the armor's enhanced sensors, she saw the Arxian drone before it breached the lab's outer defenses. Its crystalline structure was beautiful, perfect, and perfectly predictable, just like its masters. "Time to show them what human weakness really means," Emily whispered, and stepped forward to meet their future. Marcus "Lightning" Thompson hadn't left his apartment in 3 weeks. The former pro gamer's living room was a cave of holographic displays and empty energy drink cans, the only light coming from the neural interface testing programs he'd been running. When the knock came at his door, he almost ignored it, until his security system showed him who was waiting outside. "Dr. Parker," he said as he opened the door, not bothering to hide his surprise. "I watched your team's qualifier matches against the Arxians. Brutal stuff." Emily stepped inside, her eyes taking in the sophisticated setup. Behind her, Kayla West whistled at the custom hardware. "Nice rig. Military grade." "Better." Thompson smiled, leading them to his main station. "Custom built. The military's still using linear processing for their neural interfaces. I've been experimenting with quantum-based systems that can handle multiple reality streams simultaneously." Emily picked up one of his modified neural headsets. "That's exactly why we're here. Your last tournament record. 27 simultaneous input streams while maintaining perfect response time. Nobody's even come close to replicating that." "Yeah, and it got me banned from professional gaming." Thompson's voice held no bitterness, only amusement. "They said it had to be some kind of hack. Couldn't believe a human brain could process that much data." Kayla had already plugged into one of his systems, her eyes widening at the code scrolling past. This is beautiful. You're not just processing multiple streams. You're weaving them together into a single enhanced reality. The same principle we need for the power armor," Emily said, pulling up the latest test results on her tablet. "Our previous pilots all tried to handle each system separately. Weapons, shields, movement, sensors. Their brains couldn't keep up." Thompson leaned back in his chair, a familiar gleam in his eyes. "But if you treat it like a game, like all those inputs are just different aspects of the same reality." He paused, looking at Emily. "You want me to pilot it, don't you?" "We want you to help us redesign it first," Emily replied. "The neural interface is based on old paradigms. We need someone who understands how to make multiple data streams feel natural, intuitive." "And then?" Thompson asked, though his growing smile suggested he already knew the answer. "And then you show the Arxians what a real neural master can do." Emily's voice hardened. "They think human brains are too simple, too limited. Time to prove them wrong." Thompson stood, walking to a hidden panel in his wall. It slid open to reveal a room full of custom interface equipment that made even Kayla gasp. "I've been waiting for something like this. Gaming was never just about winning for me. It was about pushing the boundaries of what human consciousness can do." He pulled out a sleek black device. "This is my latest design. A neural amplifier that doesn't just process data. It helps the brain learn how to create new neural pathways on the fly." The military rejected it as too experimental. "The military rejects a lot of good ideas," Emily said, thinking of Project Phoenix. "How fast can you pack?" "Already done." Thompson grinned, hitting a button that started his systems beginning their shutdown sequence. "I've been packed ever since I saw that council meeting. Just been waiting for the right opportunity." 3 hours later, in the bunker's testing chamber, Thompson stood before the power armor. His neural amplifier had been integrated into the interface system, and the holographic displays showed his brain activity, spiking in patterns that should have been impossible. "Ready?" Emily asked from the control room. Thompson's response was to close his eyes and step back into the armor. As the neural link engaged, his consciousness expanded, not fighting the data streams, but dancing with them. The armor moved like liquid metal, each motion fluid and natural. "Run the combat simulation," he said, his voice steady despite the massive data flow. "And this time, make it interesting." The holographic display in the bunker's command center showed the wreckage of the second power armored unit drifting through the asteroid field. Its pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Hayes, had survived. Barely. The Arxian challenge course had torn through her defenses like they were paper, leaving the advanced suit in pieces. "They're not just testing us," Dr. Emily Parker said, her knuckles white, as she gripped the edge of the control console. "They're trying to break us, all of us." Marcus Lightning Thompson stood behind her, his eyes fixed on the replay of the latest failure. The course changed mid-run. "The asteroids, they're not random, they're being controlled." "Correct." The Arxian observer's translator crackled through the room's speakers. The insectoid alien stood in the corner, their compound eyes reflecting the holographic carnage. "Each trial is uniquely calibrated to exploit human limitations." Kayla West's fingers flew over her console, analyzing the data from the failed run. "The pattern recognition software isn't keeping up. They're using quantum randomizers to mask their control signals." "Because they know we're pattern hunters," Thompson said, his voice taking on the focused tone he used during tournament finals. "So let's stop looking for patterns and start creating our own." Emily turned to him. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking it's time to show them why humans dominate every virtual combat space we've ever created." He moved to the neural interface station, already starting to hook himself up. "Kayla, remember that quantum stream weaving we discussed? Let's implement it. All of it." "That's not been tested," Emily started. "Neither was your first run in the armor." Thompson cut her off with a grin. "Sometimes you have to trust the human element." The Arxian observer's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Your species' tendency toward desperate gambles is well documented. It will not save you here." Thompson was already sliding into the power armor, the neural links connecting with familiar warmth. "Ready the course. No more practice runs." "Marcus," Emily's voice was low, concerned. "The last two pilots. We're trying to react to the course," he finished. "I'm going to make the course react to me." The launch sequence initiated, and Thompson felt the familiar surge as his consciousness expanded through the armor systems. But this time was different. Instead of processing the data streams sequentially, he let them flow together, creating a new kind of awareness. The asteroid field loomed before him, a dense cloud of rock and ice being subtly manipulated by hidden Arxian technology. The previous pilots had tried to navigate it. Thompson had other ideas. "Beginning trial run," the Arxian observer announced. "Your goal is TOW." Thompson was moving before they finished speaking. The power armor responded like an extension of his will, not just dodging asteroids but using them. He grabbed one rock, using its momentum to sling himself deeper into the field. Each movement flowed into the next, a dance of metal and stone. "Impossible." The observer's translator actually glitched. The gravitational forces alone should. "Should what?" Thompson asked, his voice steady despite moving at speeds that should have torn the armor apart. "Should crush a weak human body. Should overwhelm our simple minds." He reached the center of the field, where the largest asteroids created a seemingly impenetrable wall. The previous pilots had tried to find a path through. Thompson simply raised the armor's arms. "What are you doing?" Emily asked, though there was a note of understanding in her voice. "Changing the game," Thompson replied. The neural interface hummed as he accessed its full power, not fighting the quantum randomizers, but adding his own chaos to the mix. The asteroids responded, their controlled patterns breaking down as new variables were introduced. "You cannot," the observer began. "Can't what?" Thompson's laugh was pure joy as he turned their own technology against them, creating a path, where none had existed. Can't improvise, can't adapt, can't take your perfect little test and turn it into something new. He shot through the gap he'd created, crossing the finish line with time to spare. As the power armor settled back into its dock, Thompson could see the observer's compound eyes had changed color, from confident purple to uncertain green. "Still think we're too simple?" he asked, stepping out of the armor without a single sign of neural strain. "Because we're just getting started." The underground training facility buzzed with an energy that made the air feel electric. Dr. Emily Parker stood at the observation window, watching as Alex Rivera, the former parkour champion, moved through the obstacle course in power armor like it was an extension of his body. "He's not following any of the standard movement protocols," Kayla noted, her eyes fixed on the neural interface readings. "Look at these patterns. It's like he's creating new physical laws on the fly." Thompson nodded from his position at the main control panel. "That's because he doesn't see obstacles the way we do. To him, everything is just a potential flow state." Below, Rivera launched the power armor into what should have been an impossible sequence, running vertically up a wall, transitioning into a backflip that carried him through a gap barely wider than the armor itself. The Arxian observer's mandibles clicked rapidly, their translator unable to keep up with what must have been a stream of disbelief. "Next up," Emily called through the intercom. "Lisa Chen, you're on deck." The deep-sea welder stepped forward, her compact frame belying the strength that had helped her survive pressure tests that would have crushed most submarines. As she interfaced with the power armor, her neural patterns showed something unique. "Look at that," Thompson pointed to a new data stream. "She's not just reading the pressure sensors, she's actually feeling the air currents around the armor, using them to predict environmental changes before they happen." The third member of their unorthodox team, former racing driver James Wilson, watched with professional interest. "It's like draft reading in a race, finding the invisible paths that everyone else misses." Emily smiled, remembering how each of them had been recruited. Rivera, found practicing illegal parkour runs on the upper levels of New Shanghai. Chen, discovered when she saved an entire underwater mining team by welding a breach shut from the outside. Wilson, who'd made history by driving through a Category 5 hurricane to deliver emergency medical supplies. "We're breaking every protocol in the book," she said, but there was pride rather than concern in her voice. Traditional military training would never allow this kind of improvisation. "Traditional military training is why the first two pilots failed," Thompson replied, his fingers dancing over the controls as he adjusted the neural interface to better match Chen's unique perception patterns. They were too focused on following the rules. The Arxian observer moved closer to the window, their compound eyes shifting through various spectrum analyses. "Your methods are chaotic, unpredictable. It goes against all established combat doctrine." "That's the point," Kayla said, not looking up from her station. "You can't predict what you don't understand." As if to emphasize her words, Chen executed a maneuver that made the observer's exoskeleton rattle. Using the armor's power field to create a vacuum bubble, she effectively surfed through the air on waves of pressure differential. "Impossible," the observer's translator crackled. "The calculations required for such precision aren't calculations at all," Emily interrupted. "It's instinct, feel, the kind of understanding that comes from dancing on the edge between life and death every day." Wilson stepped into the power armor next, his neural pattern already sensing at levels that would have been considered dangerous just weeks ago. But they'd learned something critical. The human brain wasn't limited by its processing power, but by its preconceptions of what was possible. "Ready to show them some real speed?" Thompson asked through the comm. Wilson's laugh was all the answer they needed. The power armor moved like a blur, breaking every speed record they'd set while maintaining perfect control. It wasn't just about reaction time. It was about anticipation, about living in the space between seconds. Emily watched as her team of neural naturals redefined what the power armor could do. They weren't just pilots learning a system. They were artists creating a new form of human expression, one that would soon show the galaxy exactly what human weakness could achieve. Tomorrow, she announced as the day's training session ended, we start the real work. The Orcs want to see our limits. She smiled at her team. Let's show them we don't have any. The abandoned Orcian megastructure loomed before them, its crystalline spires disappearing into the purple clouds above. Thompson stood at the edge of a shattered landing platform, his power armor gleaming under the light of 3 moons. Behind him, the rest of the team waited in their own suits, neural interfaces humming with shared awareness. Final trial parameters received. Kayla's voice crackled through the comm. They're different this time. The Orcs have deployed their elite guard unit. Real warriors, not training drones. Emily's voice cut through the static. Thompson, this isn't just about proving a point anymore. These guards are veterans of the spiral arm conflicts. They've never lost a ground engagement. First time for everything, Rivera chimed in, his power armor already shifting weight in that fluid way that made him almost impossible to track. The first warning came as a ripple in the air, a distortion that Thompson's enhanced senses caught just before the attack began. 3 Orcian warriors, their natural armor augmented with crystal tech, emerged from stealth fields. Neural link established, Chen called out, her specialized sensors already mapping the pressure changes created by the Orcians' movements. They're using some kind of crystalline phase shift technology. Share it, Thompson commanded, and instantly the team's neural network came alive. Each pilot's unique perceptions flowed into a shared awareness that was greater than the sum of its parts. Rivera's understanding of flow and momentum, Chen's pressure mapping, Wilson's time-slice reactions, all of it merged into something the Orcians had never encountered before. The battle erupted across multiple levels of the megastructure. The Orcian guards moved with perfect precision, their attacks coordinated down to the microsecond. But where they had synchronization, the humans had synergy. They're trying to separate us, Wilson called out as he dodged a barrage of crystal shards that would have shredded conventional armor. Force use into one-on-one engagements. Let them try, Thompson replied, his voice calm despite the chaos. Through the neural link, he could feel his teammates' positions as clearly as his own. Show them what humans do best. Rivera took the high ground, his armor dancing through impossible gaps in the architecture. Chen used her pressure sense to track the Orcians through their stealth fields, while Wilson's racing instincts let him anticipate their attack patterns seconds before they formed. But it was Thompson who saw the real opportunity. As the battle intensified, he noticed something in the way the Orcian leader moved, a hesitation before each perfect strike, a moment of calculation that betrayed their reliance on programmed responses. They're not fighting us, he realized aloud. They're fighting their training. Every move has to be perfect, has to follow the protocol. Through the neural link, his understanding spread to the others. Instantly, their tactics shifted. Instead of trying to match the Orcians' precision, they began creating chaos, unpredictable movements, feints that led nowhere, attacks that broke every rule of conventional combat. The Orcian warriors' perfect formation began to falter. Their crystalline armor, designed to respond to known attack patterns, couldn't adapt fast enough to the humans' constantly evolving strategy. Then disaster struck. One of the upper levels, weakened by centuries of abandonment, began to collapse. The Orcian leader, focused on maintaining perfect form, didn't notice until too late. Tons of crystal and metal began to fall toward them. Thompson didn't think. He didn't calculate. He simply moved. The power armor responded instantly, breaking from combat to launch toward the trapped Orcian. time seemed to slow as his neural interface went into overdrive, processing thousands of variables in microseconds, not to find the perfect solution, but to find a human one. "What are you doing?" The Arxian leader's translator crackled as Thompson grabbed them, his power armor's shield straining as debris rained down. "Breaking protocol," Thompson grunted, using his suit's energy field in a way it was never designed for, creating a bubble of force that held back the collapse just long enough. Sometimes victory isn't about being perfect. It's about being human. Jupiter's great red spot roared behind them, a perpetual hurricane 3 times the size of Earth. The research station's distress beacon pulsed weakly through the plasma interference, its signal almost lost in the storm's electromagnetic chaos. "Final approach vector calculated." Emily's voice crackled through the heavily shielded comm system. "Thompson, Chen, you're taking point. Rivera and Wilson, you're running support with the Arxian team." The combined human-Arxian rescue force hung in formation above the station. After the events in the megastructure, the Arxian High Command had made an unprecedented decision. Their elite guards would work alongside the human power armor division for this critical mission. Temperature at station perimeter is approaching 15,000 Kelvin. Kayla reported from the command ship. The plasma density is off the charts. Standard Arxian battle armor won't last 10 minutes in there. 7 minutes, 43 seconds, the Arxian commander corrected, their translator fighting to be heard over the storm. Barely enough time to reach the central hub, much less execute a full evacuation. Thompson watched through his enhanced sensors as the Arxian warrior's crystal armor already began to show signs of stress. The station's shields had failed hours ago, leaving 100 researchers, both human and Arxian, trapped in rapidly failing environmental systems. "Then we don't do this the standard way," Thompson said, his neural interface expanding to share tactical data with both teams. "Chen, show them what you found in the pressure mappings." Chen's specialized sensors had detected something remarkable. Stable corridors within the plasma storm, areas where the magnetic fields created temporary safe zones, the kind of thing that could only be felt, never calculated. "Impossible," one of the Arxian warriors started to object, but their commander cut them off. "We have learned," the commander said, their compound eyes shifting to a respectful blue, "that human impossibilities often yield unexpected results." The mission started the moment they detected a gap in the storm's outer layer. The human power armor team moved first, their neural networks operating in perfect harmony. Rivera found paths through the plasma that shouldn't have existed, while Wilson's racing instincts let them time their movements between the storm's worst surges. Thompson and Chen led the way to the station's main airlock, their armor systems already adapting to the extreme conditions. Behind them, the Arxian warriors followed their exact path, their perfect precision finally finding its perfect application. "Hull breach detected in Section 3, Kayla updated them. "You've got multiple structural failures building up. This whole place could go at any time." They found the first group of survivors in the research labs, huddled in emergency pressure suits that were never designed for these conditions. The Arxian warriors moved with incredible efficiency, their crystalline armor providing additional protection as they helped load people into emergency transport pods. "Second wave coming in," Emily warned as their sensors detected a massive plasma front approaching. "That storm is about to." The rest of her warning was lost as the station shuddered violently. A support beam, weakened by the intense heat, gave way above one of the Arxian warriors. Thompson saw it happening, just like in the megastructure, but this time he wasn't alone. The Arxian commander moved in perfect sync with him, their combined strength supporting the collapsing structure, while Chen and Rivera evacuated the remaining survivors. Human adaptability and Arxian precision working in harmony for the first time in history. "Final group located," Wilson called out, his armor sensors piercing through the growing chaos. But the path back, it's gone. The storms changed everything. Thompson looked at the Arxian commander, and through their neural interface, shared a plan that no training manual would ever have approved. The commander's eyes shifted to a color Thompson had never seen before, one that might have been hope. Together then, the commander said, their warriors moving into formation around the human team. Show us how to make a new path. As the storm raged and the station began its final death throes, human and Arxian worked as one. Not because of protocols or perfect training, but because they had finally found something stronger than either: trust. The Galactic Council chamber had changed since their first humiliating assessment, or perhaps, Dr. Emily Parker reflected, she had changed in how she saw it. The crystal walls still soared overhead, but now she understood the imperfections in their pattern. The beautiful chaos hidden within the seemingly perfect structure. The assembled council members watched in silence as the holographic display showed the full recording of the Jupiter rescue mission. Emily stood with her team: Thompson, Rivera, Chen, and Wilson. Their power armor ceremonially polished, but still bearing the scars of their trials. 117 lives saved. The Arxian High Commander addressed the council, their translator set to formal mode. Both human and Arxian, in conditions that our best models deemed unsurvivable. The lead counselor, a towering being of living crystal, leaned forward, yet the most remarkable aspect was not the survival rate, but the method. Please explain, Dr. Parker, how your team achieved this integration. Emily stepped forward, but it was Thompson who spoke first. Permission to demonstrate instead of explain. At the council's acknowledgement, Thompson activated his neural interface. The chamber's holographic systems responded, but not with simple recordings. Instead, the space filled with the direct feed from his neural link during the rescue. A swirling dance of data, instinct, and pure human intuition. This is how we see the world, Thompson said, as the display showed how his mind had processed the plasma storm's patterns. Not as problems to be solved with perfect solutions, but as possibilities to be explored. Chen added her own neural feed to the display, showing how she had felt the pressure waves. Rivera's Parker-trained perceptions joined next, then Wilson's time-slice racing instincts. Finally, the Arxian commander added their own data, showing how their species' precision had found its place within human chaos. We were wrong, the Arxian commander stated, their mandibles clicking in a pattern that the other Arxians in the chamber clearly found shocking. We saw human adaptability as a sign of weakness and inability to achieve perfection. We failed to understand that adaptability itself is a form of perfection. Emily watched as understanding rippled through the council. The power armor was never about making us stronger, she added. It was about amplifying what we already were. Every species here has evolved to be perfect at something. Humans, we evolved to be perfect at change itself. The lead counselor's crystalline form shifted, refracting light in new patterns. Your assessment trial has become something more. You have not simply proved your worth. You have shown us a new path forward. Thompson stepped forward, his power armor moving with the same fluid grace that had once been deemed impossible. That's why we're not just here to join the council. He gestured to the mixed team of human and Arxian engineers that had been working together since the rescue. We're here to share what we've learned. The new design schematics appeared in the chamber's center, power armor modified for every council species, each version embracing both the wearer's natural strengths and the adaptive potential that humans had pioneered. The future isn't about overcoming weakness, Emily concluded. It's about understanding that what we see as weaknesses are often just strengths we haven't recognized yet. The Arxians taught us the value of precision, even as we showed them the power of adaptation. Together, We're something greater than either of yous could be alone. The Council's deliberation was the shortest in recorded history. Earth was not just granted membership. They were given leadership of a new division dedicated to adaptive technologies and cross-species integration. As the chamber erupted in unanimous approval, Emily looked at her team, at the Arxian allies who had become friends, and at the future they had built together. Ready for the next challenge? Thompson asked with a grin. Emily's answer was to activate her neural interface, letting her consciousness expand into the familiar dance of data and possibility. After all, this wasn't an ending. It was just the first step in humanity's next evolution.